Well, thank all of you for being here this afternoon. Before we get into what I wanted to chat with you a little bit about, I want to again express my condolences to the Harrison Deal family. As you know, they're having the funeral service for young Mr. Deal in Statesboro this afternoon, and his family has been much in our thoughts and prayers, and so I'd be remiss if I didn't pause to make mention of that. About a week ago, the House Governmental Affairs Committee made a decision to have a hearing regarding the concerns that many Georgians have regarding the 2020 election process here. I have talked a number of times with Chairman Shaw Blackman. I told him that I wanted this to be a factual hearing. I wanted it to be non-adversarial. I wanted it to focus on the on matters that would lead to some ideas for some substantive improvement in our election laws here in the state that we can consider when we come into session on January 11th. He and his team had put together a very, very good program, I think. It was balanced. I think that we tried to be responsive to those that wanted to be heard. As part of the process, he invited the Secretary of State or his representatives to the hearing. Once again, for non-adversarial reasons. There was no reason to be adversarial, but just to simply sit down with us and look at how we could dialogue and come up with some factual answers to some of these concerns. And so a week ago, the notice of the hearing went out, and then Monday morning of this week, the notice, an invitation was sent to the Secretary of State. We received last night a written communication that the Secretary of State's office had refused to participate in that hearing. And I am completely shocked. I'm disappointed. I don't ever remember in my time serving in this General Assembly a constitutional officer refusing to come before a House or a Senate committee to offer up information that might be helpful to the people's representatives. The people of Georgia are really they are wanting answers out of their representatives. And I speak today for 179 representatives who I think are entitled to have had that type of question and answer period with the Secretary of State. And so I am incredibly disappointed that they chose to not participate in that, particularly when I just found out that they have a daily press briefing, which they did have today. So I guess they felt it was more important to talk to y'all than to talk to the people that the people of Georgia had elected to represent them here at this Capitol. Unfortunately, this is just the latest example of decisions and judgments that have been made in that office that I think have excluded the General Assembly. I go back to the consent decree that the Secretary entered into in the legal case back in March. I go back during that same time period to his decision to undertake the universal application for absentee ballot program, where he mailed one to every single registered voter in the state of Georgia, again without input or approval by this General Assembly. And so today we have yet another example of this, of a constitutional officer who has chosen to be on his own and to disregard input from the people who he looks to for his budget and to consider legislative changes to his office. As a result of that, I have had occasion to reflect, and this doesn't come quickly, but I thought today was a good opportunity to talk about this publicly. I think it's time in Georgia that we look at an alternative way of electing our Secretary of State. There are more than one option as an alternative. Frankly, I like the option of having the General Assembly elect that individual for a set term. This is the model that the state of Tennessee uses. I've talked with the Tennessee Secretary of State today, and it is working well up there and has worked well up there for a long period of time. And he volunteered to me that it really builds into the process a feeling on the part of he and his office that they are accountable to and answer to the General Assembly, because they know that we're accountable to the people of that send us here. So at the end of the process of this committee hearing, I'm going to ask Chairman Blackman to take that up with his committee, and I'm dead serious about this, and so we can consider next session a constitutional amendment that would provide for the election of the Secretary of State of Georgia by the General Assembly, and not in the fashion that it has been done for a long period of time. I think it's the only way to right this ship. I don't do this lightly. I don't do this disrespectfully to the incumbent, who I have high personal regard for, but I do it because we have a job to do as members of the House and members of the Senate. So with that, I'll stop and take any questions that you might have. Yes, Mark.
So that's an interesting proposal about taking over or having the General Assembly elect the Secretary of State. Couldn't there be an argument that, you know, the people elect the Secretary of State and not the General Assembly?
Well, it's not working very well right now. And I know that the people feel like they're being excluded by that office, and they are focused their frustrations on the members of the General Assembly in a way. I see it every day. I mean, I would share them with you, and I wouldn't inflict it on you, but you know, I'm getting emails and messages and phone calls from not only people in my House district, but people from all over the state of Georgia. I know other members are. So I think this would bring a closer focus on the operation of the office. This is what we do with DOT, and it seems to work pretty well there. I think it'll work well here.
And Mr. Speaker, you talked about that proposal. We've also heard from other legislators about other potential proposals that would come up in the upcoming legislative session, such as eliminating no excuse absentee voting, eliminating drop boxes, eliminating mailing of absentee ballot applications from third parties or even from county governments. Do you support those proposals?
I'm going to wait and see what the findings of the committee are. I have tremendous respect for Chairman Blackman and the members of that committee. I want to take a look at see what their findings are. I think that I will say, as I've said earlier, that entering into agreements to settle court cases in ways that alter substantially the way we handle absentee ballots is something I think should have been the subject of conversation with the General Assembly. I think that the mailing out universal applications for absentee ballots should have been the subject of conversation. I know that there are other ideas floating out there that people are advocating, and we're going to take a look at all of them between now and January when we come back here. Thank you very much.